the first of those mistakes that you will see happens quite often, and sometimes this happens because the person who is looking to get married is a little bit younger. They may not have as much experience in life, and that is marrying someone who is a project. What does that mean? That means this person that I am going to marry, this person who I am thinking of, this person who I have in mind, out of 10, 15 different qualities that I have in mind for this person, they might have 10, 12, 13. There's just one or two qualities that happen to be fundamental qualities that this person is missing. And so quite often you will find people, they will entertain this type of a connection, this type of a marriage, especially if the marriage is a love marriage. Why? Because there's already an emotional connection that has been built between these two individuals. So now he's sitting there and she's sitting there and they're thinking to themselves, you know what? He has everything I'm looking for, except when he gets angry, he gets a bit harsh. Except sometimes I feel like he's not as mature as he needs to be. He's not as responsible as he needs to be. He has everything I'm looking for, except sometimes I feel like religion, faith, doesn't play the role in his life that it's supposed to play. And most people in these types of situations will take the following approach. They'll say, listen, he has all these other characteristics, he has all these other qualities. Inshallah, this one will also get better after marriage. I'll marry this person. Inshallah, I will teach them, I will guide them. Religion will become a more important thing for them in their life. Inshallah, we'll work together on the fact that sometimes he gets very harsh when things don't go his way. Inshallah, we'll work together on him becoming a little bit more responsible. Brothers and sisters, if this person is missing a fundamental quality, this is a sign not to move ahead with this marriage. This is a mistake that our younger generation makes over and over and over again. I know to some of our elders this might seem like a simple idea. Well, if they're missing that, well, a lot of our youngsters don't have that experience. And so they look at this situation and a lot of times they have good intentions. What is that good intention? That good intention is this. From their own innocence, they say, well, people can change. Who are we to judge people? Who are we to say that this person's always going to stay like this? Maybe further down the road they change. And there is nothing to say that someone will not change in their life. I want to be abundantly clear about this. If you're younger and you're listening to this, I'm on your side actually. I'm not as pessimistic as a lot of your parents are. There is absolutely abundant proof that it is possible for someone to change. Someone may not be very religious. They might become more religious later on. Someone may not be very responsible. They might become very responsible later on. Someone may be like this. They become a little bit different later on. Sometimes the changes are small. Sometimes the changes are actually very big. What is possible in a marriage, I would completely agree with you. There are a lot of possibilities. I'm not going to sit there and say this person's always going to stay like this. But the factor that you're missing in this whole discussion and the principle that you are missing in this whole discussion is that we do not decide when it comes to our marriage based off of what is possible. We decide based off of what is probable. Big difference. Big difference. We don't decide based off of what is possible. Why? Because you are now betting the next 70 years of your life, the next 80 years of your life. And you say, well, this is how he is, but maybe he changes. Maybe religion becomes a big thing for him. Maybe that relationship, that friendship that he has with someone from the opposite gender, when we get married, he sets aside these friendships. That's a maybe, and it's possible. I wouldn't be the type of person to sit there and say, no, this person's always going to stay like this. People change all the time. The problem is the way you are approaching this issue is with the wrong lens. You're talking about possibility. When it comes to marriage, we talk about probability. We talk about likelihood. We talk about if I am approaching this situation, what are the chances that I'm dealing with? This is how we approach marriage. And then you run two very major risks when you marry someone like this. Doesn't mean this person's a bad person, by the way, but they're just not ready, maybe, for example. Their fundamental qualities are not there. You run two major risks. You go into this marriage, and your idea is, you know what? He or she has 80% of what I'm looking for, but that last 20%, it's not a problem. I'm going to constantly work on them. I'm going to guide them. Again, the 20% is not details, fundamental qualities we're talking about. That's an important point to make. What happens? Immediately you will see, after the honeymoon phase and after everything that's fun ends, then there is resentment that starts to grow in this relationship. Why? Because constantly this person is being told by you that they need to change this issue. And the issue at hand is not some detail that you can just ignore. The issue at hand is a fundamental issue. The role of faith in the life of this person is a fundamental issue. The sense of responsibility that he's supposed to have is a fundamental issue. The relationships this person has outside of the marriage, how he interacts with the opposite gender, these are fundamental issues. And so now you have this issue, you have this concern, and constantly you are sitting there every opportunity. Well, you know, you're not supposed to do this. Well, you know, we're not supposed to do this. What does this happen? What does this lead to? It leads to resentment in the marriage. This person feels like you're bossing them around. This is number one. Then comes number two. Even if, this is the second problem, even if they don't feel that way, even if they go along with it, even if they actually change their ways, this is the other problem you're dealing with. The other problem that you are dealing with is that even when people agree to make big changes in their life, there is a very good chance that at one point or another, they might revert back to their old lifestyle. Again, there are details in life. You say, well, this person might change this. Yeah, that's a detail. It's not a problem. But if it's a fundamental issue and this person decides to go back to how they were, how are you going to stop that from happening? And now you have children in the house. Your children are supposed to look up to their father, but their father doesn't care about faith the way you care about it. You know how many times I've heard this? And it's an extremely difficult position to be in. And then you will hear people saying lines like this. They'll say, well, you knew what I was like before we got married. Rings a bell, doesn't it? You knew who I was. Yeah, but I thought, and you promised, and we talked about this and that. And that person will turn around and be like, yeah, but sometimes changing some things are just too difficult. You don't want to marry someone who's an unfinished project. At least when it comes to fundamental issues. So you say, okay, well, how am I supposed to look at things, Sheikh? This is how you're supposed to look at things. If you look at that person the way they are today, and you look at that and say, you know what, I can live with this. If this person didn't change at all, they're not missing any fundamentals in this marriage. Our life is not going to run into any major issues. Then you're good to go. But if you look at that situation and you say, wow, this person has 80% of what I'm looking for, but the last 20% of the fundamentals that I'm looking for, this person doesn't have, this is a clear sign not to move ahead with that marriage. This, though a simple principle, is the cause of a lot of issues, brothers and sisters. I cannot tell you how many issues stem from this simple principle. You knew this person was like this. Say, well, now they've changed. Now they're doing things differently. Okay, if you want to know if this person is making that change because of you, or they're making this change because of some other reason, allow them to adopt that lifestyle before you get married. This person says, no, now I believe religion plays a big role in my life. Now I believe I have to pray 5 times a day. I think that's an important fundamental quality in my life. Okay, So why don't you sit back and observe this person a little bit? Why does the promise have to always go to after we get married? No, if you believe this is important, why don't you adopt it now? And you don't have to go to that person with an ultimatum, by the way. This is just your own mindset. Say, if this person really cares about this issue, let me observe and see if they're going to adopt this lifestyle. Let's see if he becomes more responsible. Let's see if faith really matters to him like that. Let's see if he will cut off these other friendships that he has. If he adopts that on his own, or she adopts it on her own, that's a good sign. That's a sign that this person really thinks this way, and you give it enough time, and you see if they've stuck to it. That's a better sign, at least, to move forward with the situation. But just going in with a promise, this is a very scary situation, brothers and sisters. That person that you want to marry, look at them how they are today. Can you live with that for the next 80 years? If the answer is yes, alhamdulillah, come, I'll do the nikah for you guys. Okay? That was hyperbole, by the way. We'll find some sheikh. There's so many marriages, alhamdulillah. Yes, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Outside of Muharram and Safar, of course, yes? Outside of these holy months. So this, brothers and sisters, is the first mistake. Aloud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah. MashaAllah, look at the passion. One more loud salawat, please. محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرج